Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for spending the next hour with this crew. We are beyond excited that there are so many groups and companies and organizations that are interested in hearing what this group has to say about DoD Skillbridge. We had 154 people that registered for this. So I see about 80 in the call now. We'll give it just a little bit longer in case there are other people that are hopping in. But again, just wanted to say thank you for joining us and welcome again. And just give us a couple of minutes while we let everybody else jump in. All right. So we have about 90 now. I think we'll go ahead and get started. We're a couple of minutes past the hour. Again, I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining. My name is Candy Tillman. I am a community partner. I work across lots of companies and lots of organizations. DoD Skillbridge is, as I've been in the veteran services space for about 2 years, DoD Skillbridge is one program that I've come across that I think has amazing potential for service members, for employers, and ultimately for the military even. So again, thank you all for joining. We're just gonna start with some introductions, and I'd ask everybody on the panel, Elisa, let's start with you and just tell us who you are, any military affiliation or background, what you do. That'd be awesome to get us started.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, super excited to be here amongst this panel of experts at Skillbridge. So Elisa Bennett here. I'm a military veteran. I was in the Air Force for 6 years. And I'm a program manager on the Amazon Military Affairs team. So a lot of people are probably not aware that Amazon has a military affairs team, but that's something we actually recently stood up last year. My focus is to, launch the Skillbridge program across all of Amazon and bring in as many service members and get them converted into great careers and make that transition as smooth as possible.
Awesome. Kathy, would you like to jump in?
Hi, yes, this is Kathy Hanais. I am the Enterprise Veteran Talent Project Lead working here out of Mesa. And so my background is my father was in the military, then I married into the military. So everything has been ingrained is veteran specific in the military. And so I've been working in this space for about 10 years now. And I'm very thankful and grateful that Candy invited me to be a part of this today. And so Boeing launched their Skillbridge about a year ago. And so we've just been kind of taking baby steps and we're, fully launching it. And so I'm just glad to be a part of this today.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Liz, you're up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Clean with Northrop Grumman. So a little background on me, prior Air Force logistics officer. So share your Air Force time with that. When I got out, kind of dove straight into military programs. So started working for various companies, Booz Allen Hamilton, Hewlett Packard, and ultimately ended up working in a consulting role myself, going into companies and helping to build programs. So while doing that, I ended up meeting the previous Boris Kuhn role here, so Marion Kane, and helping to work on Skillbridge programs there. Leaving that, started with Northrop Grumman last year and moved pretty immediately into the military space. So we've been working on our Skillbridge program since the start of this year, really moving at an expedient pace, trying to make waves and get as many people into positions as possible. And it's been really exciting and been really honored to work with other great partners such as those on the call today.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz. Hey, Dave, why don't you wrap up our employer and then we'll jump over to Boris and Scott.
Sure thing. Thanks, Candy. Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Lee, retired Army. I work at CVS Health. I lead military community initiatives for the company. So I kind of work a little bit of everything. I work with our talent acquisition team on recruiting programs. I work with a workforce initiatives team. It's where our Skillbridge program falls, and work with the businesses. on helping them better understand the military community as patients and customers. We first launched Skillbridge as part of the Army Career Skills Program back in 2017. We have a Talent Connect Center on Fort Bragg. We've expanded to Camp Lejeune, Norfolk Naval Base. We're also out at Schofield Barracks, and then we also partner with Hiring Our Heroes to do Skillbridge at lots of other locations, and looking, once we get out of this pandemic, to continue to look at new opportunities and grow the program.
Awesome, Dave. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Boris.
Great. Thank you, everybody. My name is Boris Kuhn. I'm a Navy veteran. I was prior enlisted and went officer, so I had to stay 21, voodoo green, and all the other cliche names we have in the military. But really excited. I'm now a dependent, and I'm a spouse of a military member as well. So really excited about the opportunities to grow and develop our partnerships with industry, as well as build the awareness for the program, both inside the DoD and our services with leadership and our service members, and also propagate the information across the board so more organizations are aware of the opportunities that exist for service members to go and participate in employment training. So look forward to our discussion.
Thank you, Boris. And last but certainly not least, Scott.
Hey guys, Lieutenant Colonel Scott Morley. I'm an active duty service member, United States Army. Graduated from United States Military Academy at West Point 20 years today. So I'm a Green Beret by trade, and currently I'm a sitting battalion commander in U.S. Army's recruiting command. Thanks for having me, and looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much. We're super excited to have a sitting commander join us today, just to give us a perspective. So thank you, Scott, for being on. A little bit of housekeeping, guys. So again, we have about 50 minutes together. The way that we are kind of hoping to structure this conversation, it's going to be very informal, because the goal, again, is just to help get as much information to you guys as possible. What I would ask is any questions that you might have for this group, please put them in the Q&A box that is at the lower right area. There are now 111 of you on the call, and I'll be taking a look at the questions in just a little bit. So if you could just put your questions in the Q&A section of the lower right, that would be super helpful. I've got some questions for the group that I think are going to be really helpful for everybody, based on lots of conversations that I've had with employers. So we'll get started with that, but then I am going to leave at least 15 to 20 minutes at the very end for live Q&A. So again, please put your questions in the Q&A box. I appreciate it. So Boris, if you don't mind, let's get started with you. If you could just, for those on the call that may be a little bit newer to DoD Skillbridge, can you just tell us a little bit about the program, how it benefits service members and employers, some background on, how the program started, and just a little bit of education for everybody?
Sure, no problem. So as we heard, it actually started about 5 years ago under the VAWA Act authorities. Back in 2014, Army took the realm to support soldiers right away with that, and Marine Corps as well. Ever since then, it's been growing exponentially. Leaders are scared of it, but we think it's a great opportunity when we think about the 200,000 plus service members who are transitioning each year, and roughly about 30 to 40% of them are looking to get gainful employment post-service. And because about 60% are looking for education post-service, but even those individuals realize that they need also gainful employment upon transition. So the Skillbridge opportunity, if you will, the authority is, as it sits about 2 lines long, and from there we have to derive a lot of policy, and we've had great conversations, ethical conversations as well. But with the 5 years of it being out there, we kind of look at it from a crawl, walk, run stage. We're still crawling to the walk phase, if you will, because like anybody knows, any government-run program, if it's young, we're still figuring it out. And it was mentioned, Marion Kane, my predecessor, who retired out of his position, started the program with very limited information. We got very limited guidance, but we did the best we could. And from there, from the lessons learned, we took it upon to see the expansion of the program. So today's program looks very different than a year ago from what we heard and the asks we received from industry partners and the asks we received from service members and the services. We've expanded the program to not be within 75 miles requirements. So when I speak, I just want to be very careful when I say this. I'm speaking on the DoD policy. I am not speaking to any individual service department policy. Services are able to put restrictions and policies and commands, of course, oversee the service members. So please see applicable service-related policies. But the DoD policy at large, and it's available on the DoD Skillbridge, and you can contact us. We actually respond to you now, not like a year and a half ago when there was you were going to go in the big black box. So the DoD policy allows for up to 180 days of employment training, and the employment training can be internships, pre-apprenticeships, apprenticeships, including mentorship, employment assistance, resume writing, etc. And it doesn't have to be on the installation. That was a limitation as we saw, because once we removed those kinds of constraints, we saw exponential growth actually within weeks of the program. More and more individuals were able to participate because we don't have that space capacity, if that makes sense. Even though we have large installations, we don't have the capacity for industry partners to come in. It's a very lengthy, exhausting process for industry partners to become partners of an installation, because they have to go into facilities and all that fun stuff that nobody likes to do, get lawyers involved, and it gets expensive. So removing those barriers of entry, we also look at barriers, administrative barriers for service members to participate. We looked at just the fundamentals of how we can provide the most optimal opportunity for the service member, along with making sure they're taken care of as they go through the transition phase, because they're still in transition. They still have plenty of things they need to take care of upon separation. Most programs we are seeing are in the optimal window, as we like to refer to it, is between 8 weeks to 20 weeks. And so when we talk to our partners, we're seeing more and more, and we'll defer to the Colonel there to talk more about that, because he can talk to that as just any industry partner would see it. It's very hard to let go of any employee for an extended period of time without having a replacement to backfill. So that needs to be understood both by the service member who is requesting that request for Skillbridge opportunity, but also by the industry partners. So if we can find that happy median where we know we can have that blended environment for both, that's we would call it works well for the industry partner to get optimal time for them to onboard the individual into the employment training and assist them with whatever needs are needed to get them onboarded, hopefully, for gainful employment. That works out for us. And we are always looking to reduce barriers, as we have had our discussions, and anybody who has them, we take them on. If there's questions that exist, we put those FAQs and resources out there. We worked very diligently in 2018 with the Department of Labor to work on FMLA rules and other wage and hour issues. And November 8th last year on Veterans Day, they put out those regulations, and that was we also saw a large jump in participation from industry as well. And I will stop there, and I think that pretty much said the DoD piece there.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Boris. Can you share with us a little bit about the number of service members that are participating last year versus first quarter so far of this year?
Sure. So last year we had it in total we had about 8,700 individuals participating last year from across the services, and that number might seem small if we think about the 200,000 individuals who are participating. The big things we have to remember is 70% of individuals say they want to go to have an education when they separate, and it's for the good or the bad. And this is where I think leadership and advocacy and information is important. we need to be aware when my wife transitioned and when I transitioned, you still need to kind of work possibly, and it's better to work for $15 an hour than $10 an hour. It's better to work for $20 an hour than $15 an hour. So those are important things that as leaders and both as advocates in the community, we need to discuss. So yes, I want to go use my GI Bill. Yes, I will get a BAH payment, but I'm probably going to also need it to have a part-time employment or even full-time employment. Who knows? So that is an issue that we're still looking at. So we like to compare it to the individuals who are actually looking for employment, and that's roughly about 50,000 individuals. So out of the 50,000 individuals who are seeking employment, having 8,700 of those individuals participate in Skillbridge was pretty good. That means they asked for it. You know, we're trying to grow that number because sometimes people are waiting on a one particular opportunity, maybe with CVS through HOH, and they didn't get it. Well, then they miss their window to participate. So those are things we need to do better at counseling and advocacy from that standpoint as well.
Yes.
Don't just wait for program X. The more opportunities you put yourself in, the better your chances are to having more exposure, especially if your command is open to that opportunity. This year so far, long-winded, we've already are at about 5,000 participants, even though we have COVID-19 going on, which is amazing. A lot of our partners, as mentioned, they're still hiring, which is great, and we thank you for that. The economy is not roaring per se, but the good thing I would say about everything is we've transformed the optics of veterans today from 10 years ago and 20 years ago. They're not poorly skilled, they're not victimized, they're not hurt or bent, they're willing and able. They don't need a handout, they need a hand up. And that's the message we try to drive out there.
Yeah, awesome. We're speaking of employers and providers. Can you give us the latest count on the number of nationally authorized providers that we have in the country for Skillbridge?
Sure. Yeah, because when you said nationally, it's be
yes,
different. So,
sorry.
No problem.
Yes.
No problem. So in total, on if you go on Skillbridge website today, we have roughly 354 approved programs. In totality, if you include the partners inside those programs, we have over 3,000 partnering industry partners. So they're not all employers, but that is a huge increase if we think about from where we were before. And that is, again, I always like to give credit where credit's due. Army did their amazing job with the CSP program, but we saw the limitations. We can't have too much access on the installations, and it's too costly for industry partners. So once we started opening the aperture to allowing service members to participate where they're going to finally be employed, and it could be at home, especially like right now where we're working from home. It's important to note that and get leaders on board that it's not a vacation. It is actual, they're getting their employment trained, they're getting valuable new skill sets and new competencies and everything else like that. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Boris. With that, Scott, I'm going to skip to you if I may. Given Boris's feedback, my question for you is, as a currently serving commander, will you just tell us a little bit about your experience with Skillbridge, your views on approval, and just some of your personal experiences?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kenny. And thanks, Boris, for the lead. So as a sitting commander, I've only had a handful of requests so far. But the nature of this organization is there's always so many who are exiting from my battalion. But I've approved 100% of the requests I've received. To me, the Skillbridge program, and the Army has another one that's similar in logic. It's called the Partnership for Youth Success, PAYS. They're both similar in logic insofar as I call them win-win-win-win programs, right? So the company wins by signing on to Skillbridge and getting access to that top talent that the military provides. Free and clear of drugs, right? Tested in management skills, leadership development, which is often overlooked, how to build your bench, how to build your team up from the bottom. Today's military is not the military of 1981. right? Vastly different. And I think many employers are actually surprised by the level of talent and education that today's military provides. So the company wins. Number two, the transitioning service member wins. Why? Because, as Boris said, you have up to 6 months really of free reps, right? So while you're still getting a paycheck from DoD, you are getting a free insight into corporate America and what the other side of life could be like in the civilian world as you prepare to transition out of the military. You get free insight of that corporate culture, the do's and don'ts. And a lot of times, exiting service members don't get it right on the first time. So here's a free shot to get a free 6-month look, or up to 6-month look at what that other side of the fence looks like. So there's the second win. Third win, the military wins. So by reinvesting those veterans into corporate America, into local communities, right? Those veterans can spread the good news about the truth about what military life is really like. A lot of assumptions, a lot of negative stigma and schema still pervade most of American society overall. So, a little bit of stat on that one. So less than 1% of American population serves in uniform. And of that 1%, 78% of those come from military legacy families. So what I read into those statistics is that less and less people know about the military overall, right? And then also what that also tells me is that those who do serve see the benefit of it. And so anytime where you have someone who has successfully exited the military and can spread the truth and the good news about the military, it's a win for the military, right? So there's a third win. And the fourth win goes to the communities. So as those communities invest their top sons and daughters into the military up front, as an exiting high school graduate or a college graduate, through those programs such as Skillbridge and the Partnership for Youth Success that the Army has, those communities get that top talent back, and it's reharvested and reinvested back into those communities. So for me, it's intuitive. A younger Scott Morley 10 years ago or 15 years ago may have said something a little bit less mature, but today I think it's a no-brainer. I think every sitting commander should take a strong look at approving these.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. Your perspective is so helpful, and especially you are currently in recruiting, and so you're thinking both about the recruiting part, but also the transition part as part of that. Thank you again just for what you're doing. And Scott, by the way, and Boris, I'm going to move into some questions for our employer partners that are on with us today. If at any time you guys have questions that you think we need to be asking that I am not, please feel free to jump in. This is super informal, and it's meant to just share as much information as possible. So again, thank you so much, Scott. Really appreciate it. So Liz, how are you, Liz?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, good, good. Thank you again, Liz, for doing this. Again, just to brag a little bit on this group, this idea came up, and in about 24 hours, everybody on this call had said, yes, sign me up, I'll do it. And so I just want to say thank you to each of you for leaning in on what was just an idea not too long ago. But Liz, I think as we get started, we have lots of employers and recruiters on this call that are starting to think about how they can think about Skillbridge. And Boris, I love the crawl, walk, run approach that you talked about, because I think employers also have a similar process that they're navigating. Liz, can you just tell us a little bit about Northrop Grumman's approach for Skillbridge, some things that you guys have learned, and kind of where you are today?
Absolutely. So first and foremost to everyone, I would say do your homework. So building Skillbridge is a combination of passion and execution, and you can't do one without the other. And your key players, your advocates, are going to be your TA leadership. They're going to be your Scott Morleys. They're going to be your government liaisons that are out there that you're able to reach to as conduits. They're going to be, I'd say, your Boris Cons, but there's only one Boris, so we'll say it's him. But it's going to be your government as well as your legal department, truly. So if you're going to stand up a solid infrastructure that you want to succeed, those are all the pieces and the players that you need to have to have in place in order to move forward, because you're going to be building something from a ground up. Now, whether you have a really robust military program, or like Northrop Grumman, where, a quarter of our company is veterans, you're looking at something that has mission and vision and execution all tied into it. And so a service member is already excited, and you have people applying and that are ready to go. It's canvassing those players into different spots across the country or overseas, and giving them an opportunity to leverage this program. So the way that we've been doing it, we started building out our own program earlier this year. So been moving at a pretty expedient rate, working very closely with Boris, who's been wonderful in terms of providing that guidance and walk, crawl, run, sprinting, trying to make sure people are put in place. But we started out with requisitions being opened actually at our COEs. So we started out with that approach. We knew we had candidates that were applying, and we started out that way. So piecing out basics of marketing within the requisition, saying, hey, this program's out there. This is what we have going on. We had our MOU signed. We made sure all those check boxes were done. And then we started doing it that way. We didn't do any large external marketing at the beginning. So we let candidates apply and kind of see it a little bit more organically. And that allowed us to control it a bit. So I think one of our big, victories and passions as well is, like Boris mentioned, during the COVID crisis and everything we've been seeing, we still were hiring. In fact, we were surplusing, which was pretty incredible. So in Palmdale, California alone, we were looking still to try to hire 1,900 people at the peak as we were seeing all this. And so trying to make sure we could pipeline people in and do that correctly was really, it's really been a task. So the takeaway from that is, before you can launch into making such an impact with these men and women that are getting out, you need to have that solid framework there, because otherwise if the floodgates are going to open, and you're going to have a population that's exciting. Because if you're an organization that truly values the service member, they're going to be ready to come to you. It's just making sure you follow the rules, you follow the regs, you cite things appropriately, and you have some proper protocol down in case you run into any of those legal questions, because you might have university teams dealing with internships, but this will be a new animal for a lot of the leadership that you might be encountering and talking to within your organization.
Liz, can I ask you, when you guys started the approval process for your MOU,
Mm-hmm.
how long did it take for you guys to work through all of that with your legal to get to completion?
That's a great question, and I'm going to put it at a roundabout of a few months kind of answer. So if you look at that way, I mean, you're drafting things up, you're probably taking a few swipes at what your final product will be. It's getting that buy-in and understanding, which if you do that ahead of time, you're not going to have any of the obstacles in terms of understanding it. Then it's being sent up to the different levels. So depending on the size of your company, you're looking at it from a sector approach. So an aeronautics sector, then going up to an enterprise level in terms of getting that buy-in, and then having it come back down, and then working with OSD in order to get that finalized. 3 months, and I can say that that's fast now. That's very fast in comparison to what things were before. It was a little bit of a moving target. So, but that's about what it took us.
Yep. And how are you guys, you mentioned a little bit about you were light on the marketing in the beginning to let it grow organically. How are you guys, I know you have an event coming up soon. How are you guys marketing to potential Skillbridge eligible candidates now?
Right now, it has been a lot of LinkedIn. And that being said, understanding not every service member is obviously on LinkedIn, right? So we've been trying to also go more of the base approach and looking at it from those key POCs that are with the requisite branches to be able to disseminate the information. So we're kind of doing a top-down approach as opposed to a grassroots approach or kind of boots on ground, just because we think over time that trickle-down effect will ultimately be the best impact. A stat we learned from Boris was that 70% of service members are exiting from overseas this year. So that's a whole population of people who, don't normally have the opportunity to get involved in such a program. And it's really exciting. So looking at helping some of those people during COVID, I mean, it's still unfortunately going on, obviously, but during the peak of what were these unknowns, I mean, thanks to this program, we were still able to bring people from Germany, even overseas, and bring them into the company. So it's been namely LinkedIn and then base approaches.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Liz.
Absolutely.
Dave, thank you again for joining us, Dave. Can you share a little bit about your experience with Skillbridge through CVS Health?
Sure thing, Candy. Yeah, so, Boris alluded to this, that the Career Skills Program has been a little bit more challenging than where Skillbridge is now, as you look at being able to access through the other services. Our first program we launched in partnership with the Columbia Southern Education Group, and actually leased space on Fort Bragg. And we have a Talent Connect Center that's about a mile from where the transitioning service members go through the TAP program and things like that. So very close access and ability for us to connect in with soldiers. We've expanded the program through Skillbridge with the Navy in Norfolk Naval Base. And as I mentioned earlier, we're also leveraging the Hiring Our Heroes program. So there's certainly is challenges. Boris said it, when you've got to get installation approval, work through the legal to actually lease space on a military installation, all the right things to do for the service members to be close to where they work, so that they can have an office they can stop in, get answers to questions and things like that. But it takes a long time to get those programs up and running. The other thing is we look around at Fort Bragg, just as an example. Lots of organizations that are working there on the installation. Some provide training on the installation. We provide training out in our stores. We have a couple of different approved programs, but the one that's most popular is our store manager training program. And so we actually put people in the stores working with our training store managers and put them through the program that they would go through if they joined the company after service, which is a great opportunity for them to figure out, is retail really what I want to do? So instead of having to go out and find a job after you've left the military and then make the decision, gee, is this what I want to do? They get to do it while still in uniform. But as Boris mentioned too, we see people that are interested in going back to school, and you know what? That's fine. We train them too. We've had several people that say, they're up front with us, say, I'm planning to use the GI Bill, but I want to get some experience of what it's like to work, in a company. And they come into the program. Some decide to work part-time in one of the stores after, as they head off to school. It gives them the ability to augment their GI Bill. I think the challenge, at least that I'm starting to look at, and I think the benefit of where the Skillbridge program is going, is that under this career skills program, with the detailed agreement that's required, you need jobs that you have volume for, because you have to develop and outline what the training plan is. And so there's a lot of requirements that go in it. But when you start to look at somebody like Scott, who, you may be looking for a role in at a corporate level, or a role that you don't hire a lot of people for, that's where this, these new agreements through Skillbridge give us some open opportunities to work the transitioning service member, that's the retiring service member. I know when I retired in 2009, none of these programs existed, and it was extremely difficult. We had a recession going on, so very similar economic times to what's going on now. And so the ability for us to be able to take Skillbridge and create a less structured program, more of an internship for senior leaders, is critical to helping people that are retiring. I saw a statistic through Hire Heroes USA, which is a nonprofit that helps place service members. The service members that face the greatest challenges that they work with are the ones with the most education. So a program like Skillbridge that can take somebody with a lot of education and a lot of leadership experience and give them the opportunity to start at a lower level and kind of work and experience that, give the company the opportunity to see what they can do. It's a win-win. You know, Scott, you talk about win and win. You know, when I left service, I made a decision I didn't want to work at a defense contractor. The win for me, I got to go do something completely fresh and new. You know, before you all came in, I was saying I went to work at Amazon and built Amazon.jobs. Who'd ever think a field artillery officer would get to do something like that? But the way it happened was I did a lot of consulting work before I got the job at Amazon. Skillbridge is like being a consultant for a senior leader. You get to go in, and in that role, I learned from peers that were, younger and had only worked at Amazon, but they also had the benefit of learning leadership skills from me. So it was a win-win for us and for the company. And so Skillbridge offers a huge opportunity that I think is untapped of helping retiring service members.
Awesome, Dave. Thank you so much, Dave. And you mentioned Amazon, which is a great segue. Lisa, let's talk a little bit about Amazon and what you guys are doing with Skillbridge lately.
Yeah, absolutely. So Amazon is a big company, obviously, a big tech company that focuses on e-commerce, cloud computing, and digital streaming. We're a fast-paced, ever-growing company. To get a sense of our culture, check out our 14 leadership principles, and you'll get a sense of our peculiar nature. And we really do make our business decisions and hiring decisions all around these 14 leadership principles. So if you're interested in pursuing a career opportunity with Amazon, that's a big hint. Check out the 14 leadership principles. It'll help you a lot there. So some of the businesses at Amazon are, Amazon Web Services. So they are the cloud computing platform. And so Amazon has actually been using Skillbridge since last year, 2019, to help active duty military members bridge any technical gaps that they may have to fill some of our tech roles within that business entity. So I've actually been working with Boris for the last 6 months to see how can we make sure that the rest of the company, not just AWS, is able to utilize Skillbridge. And so we actually got that approved last month. And so now we're going to introduce Skillbridge internship opportunities into other businesses at Amazon. So what I'm focusing on this year is our business within worldwide operations. So think of our fulfillment centers. When you use our e-commerce, you're ordering something through Amazon, you get a big box with a smile on it. That's our worldwide operations team. And so we're looking for leaders in 3 different locations this year to make sure those packages get to our customers, and that's in Northern California, New Jersey, and Baltimore. And then we're going to continue to use Skillbridge, obviously, within the AWS sector as well. We're currently using them to be funneled into our veteran technical apprenticeship program. So those are the 2 ways right now we're using Skillbridge to fill those roles.
Awesome. How so you just got your MOU with Boris's team in April?
Last month, right? For the entire company. Yep.
Okay. About how long was that process for you guys?
Like Liz mentioned, months. I think overall it was 6 months in total.
Okay.
As far as like working with the legal team, going back and forth, meetings, making sure everyone's on the same page regarding the agreement, and then we're all ready to rock and roll.
Okay. And guys, for those of you on the webinar, I am seeing some questions come in. So we are, some of the questions that I'm asking are questions that I'm seeing coming in. And we're also going to talk about that approval process in just a second for the MOU, which is the Memorandum of Understanding. Thank you so much, Lisa, for being here. I also have some follow-up that Elisa has shared with me that I'll send out to everybody that touches a little bit more on the Skillbridge opportunities that Amazon's doing. So she's very willing for everybody to see that. Kathy, I'd love to switch over and talk a little bit about your experience at Boeing with Skillbridge.
So just to kind of be mindful of our time, Boeing launched their kind of the slow method late last year. And so we launched our BMVP program, introducing Skillbridge to a lot of our management. So one of the things that we needed to work through is the buy-in. But really talking about what a great program it is, but really working on our internal resources, being able to two things: communicate, educate, our recruiters, our HRBPs, the different managers about the program and some of the different processes, and kind of developing what that process looked like. But I think the key piece was really building that relationship. And so we haven't really launched and marketed it at a large scale right now. It's been more grassroots, kind of working individually. And so we, thus far, for this year, we've brought on 20, which seems like a small number, but we are just kind of in the early stages. And I think the big piece was getting the managers to really understand, because it seemed too good to be true, because it's kind of it is a win-win situation. And so for us, it's really about the flexibility that the program gives us, because whereas we had partnered in years past with HOH, there was a lot of flexibility within the cohort model, and so we've kind of launched out on our own to kind of do it at will and having that more of that flexibility, but really launching into that springboard, what's going to happen after we kind of get out of this COVID situation, but really building that. I think the key piece is really level setting with the candidates, the transition service members, and also within the managers of what the program can and cannot do. And one of the pieces is we'll use it as a piece to when we have open recs to kind of fill that. But really, once we introduced it, the floodgates started to open, and we had to kind of scale back and say, we can't use Skillbridge for every single position within Boeing. We've got to really identify what are those, top 15 positions that we can utilize the program and really give value. And I think the purpose is, how do we add value to our transitioning service member? How do we give back and really build that partnership? Because here as the military is coming out with these great skills, but how do we give them that that new training into what's the different culture change? There's a culture shift in some of the things that we do, and so the key piece is really providing the organization, the education piece, communicating, and really working through a lot of the legal barriers. And so, within some of the platforms that we work in, there's a lot of, security clearance things, different things that we had to work through with our legal, getting, access to different sites, and then really working through each branch does the program differently. Whereas like in the Army has one process, give me this, give me that. The Marines have like, here's 7 things I need you to do in order for the service members to participate. And so really being able to break through that and kind of simplify our process and really identify what are those bottlenecks, and then really prioritize what positions we're going to be able to utilize and really maximize what we're doing and being able to leverage that. Because that's what I think the intent is for the program, to showcase the great leadership and a lot of the skills, and to really bring a diverse talent into the company, because we're coming from a different, whether you've been in the military 4 years or 30 years, you're bringing something very unique and different to the organization, and I think that's where we want to really capitalize and be able to leverage that. But ultimately, we want to build success for the program, and to really kind of be that strong partner for those that are transitioning out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kathy. And guys, with that, we've had some great questions coming in as part of the discussion. So I'm going to jump into a couple of the questions that have come in. And Boris, this is something that we planned to talk about, but I think it's a great question. Can we go over the process? My employer is interested in partnering on Skillbridge with the DoD. Can we go over the process? So Boris, I'm going to let you take that question. And while you're doing that, I'm also going to share my screen of an overview as you're talking, if that's okay.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. And I just want to also clarify, so both Liz and Elisa mentioned the fact that it took, in their cases, 6 months and 3 months. Please remember that in both those instances, those are large entities, and we have the legal process and working with the PAOs and HRs was pivotal to getting those MOUs cleared and language clarified between both the employers, industry partners, etc. We have MOUs that sometimes only take 4 days. Actually, right now during COVID, we have MOUs that come in 3-4 days ago, and if the package is received and it's inclusive of everything, we can basically take care of it within 72 hours, 3 days. So it just really depends on the size of your organization and your organization's total process, control loop is cycle is everything. But as you can see where to start, Kenny did all the hard work for everybody here. She took a snapshot of this DoD Skillbridge site, contact us, and that's really where you can start. It goes into our bottomless pit of, I'm joking, it goes into our pit where we can see all the contacts, and we have a total of 3 individuals that review all the applications. And if you're looking to become a partner, the first thing we'll send you will be is a questionnaire where we're basically trying to gauge, are you sure, really based on what was asked, are you sure, and on what was mentioned throughout the conversations, different conversations here, are you sure which occupations, which roles are you willing to fill? Do you already have a training plan or internship program or any of those existing? Because that kind of will help you understand as an employer partner that you might already meet a lot of the requirements for Skillbridge, and then that'll help us also kind of put together your folder. In this case, it will be a digital folder of what we're going to be requesting from you. And so off of that questionnaire, next thing we'll send you, and if it can take you 15 minutes to fill it out, and it'll take you 45 minutes. That's roughly the amount of time we ask you. It's a pretty simple questionnaire, not too many questions. We're just basically prepping you for what we want to know, so that way our leaders are able to make those decisions for our service members with a clear intent of where they're going, what they're going to be doing, how long they're going to be there, who's the point of contact there if anything is to happen or needs to be, if they need to get a contact of the service member and or wherever the training is occurring. So after that's complete, we will send you then the MOU to fill out and or to review with your legal department and whoever the stakeholders for that process is. So a lot of times this is where it can take an hour if you're the only person, depending on the size of your organization. It can take 3 months, 2 months, 1 month, 6 months. And it's quite okay, because we want to make sure all the boxes are checked. Simply that way, this gives reassurance to the whole of the organization. It gives you an ability to socialize the program across your organization, your enterprise. And that way, when we get it back, we also can make sure to attest to it that it was already legally reviewed on both sides. And with that, after that, it's all completed, it comes back to us, and we give it to our deputy assistant secretary for signature. So it's countersigned by somebody who's senior, basically equivalent to your VP or president or CEO, depending on the size of your organization. It's really is that easy, as those steps are there. And then we'll send you back, if you want to be published like we have in the Skillbridge locations, pins with your information. We will send you the requirements for that, and then we'll post your opportunities for service members, leaders, and others to see that. And as many will attest, we try to not make it as painful as possible, unless you want it to be. We are DoD, but yeah. Any questions there from that standpoint? So it is really up to it's really a collaborative experience going through the MOU process, but it's not as cumbersome as it used to be, and as many will attest. An MOU process on an installation, any of our installations, can be much longer, simply because the best way I like to categorize the DoD is we're OSD, we're the federal government, the services are states, the installations are basically the cities. So they have all the infrastructure, all that fun stuff they have to take care of and make sure they're working properly. So they're going to be more in the weeds, more details are needed, and all those things are executed. So if you think about it that way, for those people who are not familiar with the military, just think about where you want to be approached. And we are moving more to the OSD model. That way we take care of all the service departments, and it's less messy, if you will. So when the new DoD comes out, it basically detailed that, and it's not so much we're trying to take away the rights. It's the right thing to do from an ethics standpoint, from a legal standpoint, to defend the services and to defend the service member. Because a lot of questions before, they used to come up as liability for the service member. All those questions, and all those questions are answered across the board, because the person we work for, the Undersecretary of Defense for Readiness and Personnel. So, and we can answer that question across the board.
Wonderful. Thank you, Boris. A follow-up question, somewhat related. Does the MOU take into account such things as companies' liability with non-employees on site? And how is that impacted during COVID when many people are working from home?
Great. That's a great question, because it comes up a lot of times. So the MOU does not take into, well, we have, at the end of the day, the service member is still a DoD employee. So that's the best way to categorize the experience. So the service member is still a DoD employee. They're not an intern per se of Acme Inc. So if anything occurs to the service member or anything like that, that is medical, they get hit or they get injured, we take care of them from that standpoint. If an interaction of theirs occurs with a customer, which the big thing that we also try to mitigate with the ethics and also products, we have these discussions a lot of times, is the service member should not be producing a final product on behalf of the company, because they're really in training. So it's that situation shouldn't occur, if that makes sense to some extent, because even especially right now, so they're still a DoD employee. From that, it's a tricky situation, especially now with COVID, if you will. But they shouldn't be in a predicament where they're interacting with a customer, if you will, directly of Acme Inc. And we had that situation occurring under certain procedures, and we made sure to take care of them, because that can create these kind of predicaments. And in some cases, companies already, large companies, small companies, have liability insurance as well, just like any other institution. And it's something that we all address as any entities or enterprises at large. Risk is inherent to the work we do.
Awesome. Thank you, Boris. We have a couple questions. Are there benefits to having a third-party provider do the assessment and selection of the transitioning service members for the company? What are the disadvantages and advantages of working with a third-party provider for Skillbridge? So I'm going to stop my screen share, and you guys, whoever wants to take that question, I'll let anybody jump into that.
So just from the DoD side, I would like to caveat that DoD does not have, or the services from our working group, we do not have a preference if it's a third-party entity performing the work on behalf of multiple entities. A good example of that is HOH and individuals on this phone call. So, and thank you to those. So it's at the end of the day, it's a mutual understanding between an entity and that third-party provider. So we treat the third-party provider to the same, we hold them to the same standard of any other industry partner, if you will. So it's just the way of them doing business. So I'll leave it to the industry partners then to take it from there, because it's really what they find, best practices and etc.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so at Amazon, we still plan on using the Hiring Our Heroes Corporate Fellowship Program. And so as everyone mentioned, third-party nonprofit organization, they have like 16 different locations across the US, and they work with the military installations individually to recruit and get that talent through their pipeline. And it's convenience for us, I guess, to have them take care of the administrative work on their end, working with the military installation, getting the approvals and paperwork-wise. to then bring into sponsoring companies such as Amazon. We've been working with them since the very beginning. But I think some of the cons there was just that they do have those 3 cohorts only each year. So they're not flexible with their timelines, and we're not necessarily getting the volume of hires that we need for specific roles. And so that's why we decided to launch our own Skillbridge program, really to have that flexibility and have the volume of recruiting that we want to meet our needs. We still plan on using the Hiring Our Heroes Corporate Fellowship Program. We've been partners with them for the beginning, and we continue to do so through this fellowship program, just to fill, maybe a couple roles here and there. People are very much so like the Hiring Our Heroes Corporate Fellowship Program at Amazon, but I think Skillbridge will be used in a sense to bring higher volume of hiring in specific locations where we have trouble, and kind of just having the flexibility to maybe use the internship timeline as we would like. So as Boris mentioned, we can have that timeline of 8 to 20 weeks, whereas HOHCP only allows 12 weeks to train on the job, and maybe for specific roles we need the additional time to train. So I think having your own Skillbridge program, you have that flexibility to draw out those training plans and that timeline, and you have that flexibility to do those kinds of things, whereas the third party, you're not going to necessarily have that. So maybe with HOHCP, there's definitely some roles that we get some great candidates that come through HOHCP that may not necessarily take the 12 weeks, and we can continue to look to them to fill those needs. But then maybe with specific technical roles, we might look to see if we can use Skillbridge program to extend that training a bit and have a little bit more customization around it, if you will.
Does anybody else want to offer perspective on that?
I'd agree with Elisa on majority of what you're saying there. I think for us, program access is another piece too that allows us to have a little bit more flexibility, because we can't predict how long that might take sometimes. So us being able to do a sliding scale with cohort timelines just makes it a little bit more of a symbiotic relationship between the hiring manager or whatever business unit it is and the member.
Yeah. I do want to point out one thing too, is as we're talking about third-party providers, we've mentioned Hiring Our Heroes several times. There are, if you look at the list, there are many national providers that some have cohort models, some don't. Some offer remote work locations, some don't. Some are industry specific. So I know we have a lot of government entities on this call today. I work with ICMA. I just sent them an opportunity last week that works across the country with all kinds of government agencies. There are regional providers that focus regionally. So I think the point of this call is, if an employer wants to partner with the DoD on Skillbridge, number one, we certainly wanted to communicate that there is a process that is much simpler. If a company goes through that process and decides they want to work with a third party, there are many options that are all doing really great work. And so I think this is a great discussion. I am enthusiastic by how many people signed up. We still have close to 100 people on the call now. One of the things that I certainly will do, and I'll commit to this as I know we're through our time. First of all, I would like to say thank you again to all 150 of you that signed up and 100 of you that are still on the phone call with us. And on behalf of everybody here, thank you for investing your time with us to just learn a little bit more about Skillbridge. I'd also like to thank all the panelists that leaned in less than 24 hours to basically participate, to share what they know with others who are interested. What I will commit to doing is all 28 questions that are unanswered, I will work with this group and put together some rough answers to those. We'll send those out. I will send out the slide that we showed you guys, Boris, as long as that's okay with the process, as well as the link. Again, I just want to say thank you. We're already having lots of discussions around, should this be more like a series type of event where we have different audiences? Maybe we have some third-party providers come in. So certainly we will look at that. But again, I just wanted to say thank you. And we are past the time that we are supposed to finish. Again, thank you all so much. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Candy.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Candy.
Bye.